In the raw, unfiltered reality of this world, let's peel back the layers of a story soaked in tragedy. Not the kind you see in movies, but real, gritty, and unapologetically brutal. Picture this Pan Am Flight 103. Not just a flight, but a ticking timepiece of history, set against the backdrop of a world teetering on the edge of chaos. This story isn't just about the moment when a plane fell from the sky. It's about the cold, hard aftermath that reshaped airport halls, security checks, and the entire geopolitical landscape. Before the world's innocence was shattered again on 9/11, there was this day in 1988. A day that wrote a harrowing prelude to the security rituals we endure today. Here, we're diving into the depths of the Pan Am Flight 103 disaster, where politics, terror, and human lives collided in an explosion heard around the world. Buckle up, because this isn't your average trip down history lane.
The unforgettable experience. It's very traumatic indeed, because not only the agony of an air disaster, but the almost unprecedented experience for a Scottish town of an air.
Let's begin by setting the stage for Pan Am Flight 103. It was more than just a flight number. It symbolized an era of transatlantic travel, connecting continents and cultures. Departing from London, bound for New York, Clipper Maid of the Seas was an airborne microcosm of the world, carrying passengers from all walks of life, with stories as diverse as their destinations. This flight, however, was destined to become more than a mere footnote in aviation history. It would become a grim symbol of vulnerability in the skies, marking a shift in how the world viewed air travel. But to understand the full impact of what happened, we need to rewind and look at the world in which Flight 103 took off, a world brimming with political tensions and a growing threat of international terrorism. In the late 1980s, the world was entangled in the complexities of the Cold War's final phases. The relationship between Libya, led by Muammar Gaddafi, and the Western powers, particularly the United States, was riddled with tension and mistrust. Libya's support for various militant groups and its revolutionary stance against Western dominance exacerbated these tensions. The U.S. retaliation to the Berlin discotheque bombing, an attack which was attributed to Libyan agents and killed 2 U.S. soldiers, further escalated the conflict. This led to a personal vendetta when Gaddafi's adopted daughter was killed in the U.S. airstrikes. This backdrop of political and personal animosities set the stage for the Lockerbie bombing, a tragic manifestation of this complex international chess game. The bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 was not just an isolated act of terrorism, but a direct consequence of these escalating geopolitical tensions. It exemplified how state and non-state actors engaged in acts of violence, using terror as a tool in a larger power struggle. The tragedy of Flight 103, therefore, serves as a stark reminder of the far-reaching impact of global conflicts and the blurred lines between national interests and acts of terror. This intricate web of geopolitical strife and personal vendettas not only led to the tragic event of Flight 103, but also shaped its immediate aftermath and the enduring quest for justice and understanding. Amidst the political storm, it's easy to overlook the individuals caught in its wake. The passengers of Flight 103 were not just statistics, they were people with dreams, families, and stories. Among them were students returning home for the holidays, professionals on business trips, and families embarking on vacations. Each had a narrative cut tragically short on that fateful day. By remembering their stories, we honor their lives and grasp the true human impact of this tragedy. The scale of loss extends beyond the physical destruction, touching countless lives and communities. But as we reflect on the lives lost, we must also examine the sequence of events that led to this catastrophe. The play-by-play of Flight 103's final hour reveals a chilling timeline of tragedy and underscores the brutal abruptness of the disaster. On December 21, 1988, Pan Am Flight 103 began as a routine journey, but its final hour was anything but ordinary. The aircraft, a Boeing 747 named Clipper Maid of the Seas, took off from London Heathrow at 1825, carrying 243 passengers and 16 crew members. As it cruised at 31,000 feet over Lockerbie, Scotland at 1902, tragedy struck. A bomb, concealed in a cassette player within a suitcase, exploded, creating a catastrophic chain of events. The explosion tore a 50-centimeter hole in the fuselage, leading to rapid decompression and breakup of the plane. The cockpit voice recorder captured a sudden, loud noise, marking the moment of the explosion. In seconds, the aircraft disintegrated mid-air, scattering debris over 850 square kilometers. The fuselage crashed into the residential area of Lockerbie, devastating homes and claiming 11 more lives on the ground. This sequence of events, pieced together from black box recordings and forensic evidence, paints a chilling picture of the sudden and violent end of Flight 103. The scale of this tragedy, both in the air and on the ground, was immense, touching not just those aboard, but also the small town of Lockerbie, forever marking it in history. The scale of this tragedy is like staring into an abyss and finding the abyss staring back at you. When Flight 103 exploded, it wasn't just the disintegration of a plane, it was the shattering of lives and a community. Lockerbie, a name that would become synonymous with sorrow, saw a rain of debris from the sky, a gruesome snowfall of metal and memories. 11 souls on the ground, gone in the blink of an eye, their homes obliterated under the weight of falling wreckage. The town became a sudden graveyard for the 270 lives lost, passengers, crew, and residents alike. This wasn't just a statistic, it was a raw, unfiltered narrative of loss and devastation, a gaping wound in the fabric of a small Scottish town and nations across the globe. The crash site, spread over miles, became a testament to the indiscriminate cruelty of the act. Out of this chaos and carnage, a relentless hunt for truth and justice began, weaving a complex tapestry of investigation, politics, and international diplomacy. In the cold aftermath of the Pan Am Flight 103 tragedy, an intricate investigation began to unravel the mystery. Within hours of the explosion, the search for answers was underway. The investigation, led by Scottish authorities and augmented by resources from across the UK, faced the monumental task of piecing together evidence from the scattered wreckage. A week after the disaster, the presence of high explosives was confirmed. Meticulously, over 1,000 officers combed the crash site, collecting millions of fragments. These pieces, when reconstructed, revealed a chilling picture. A small section of the fuselage shattered by an explosion from within. In a hangar in Cumbria and later at the AAIB headquarters in Hampshire, investigators painstakingly pieced together parts of the aircraft. 2 damaged baggage containers caught their attention, leading to a breakthrough. The pattern of damage indicated a high-energy event, pinpointing the explosion to a specific location within a suitcase. Traces of pentaerythritol tetranitrate, PETN, and cyclotrimethylene trinitramine, components of Semtex-H, linked the bomb to Libya. Then, in a twist akin to a detective novel, investigators found fragments of a brown Samsonite suitcase and clothes carrying a label, Maid in Malta. This tiny label became the breadcrumb leading to Tony Gauci, a shopkeeper in Malta, who recalled selling clothes to a Libyan man, a crucial link in the investigation. The investigative net widened, tracing every piece of luggage aboard Flight 103. A complex picture emerged, involving the interline baggage system and pointing to an unaccompanied bag routed from Air Malta to Pan Am 103. This painstaking investigation, combining forensic science, detective work, and international cooperation, ultimately led to the conviction of Abdelbased al-Megrahi, a Libyan intelligence officer. But the path to this conclusion was fraught with challenges, political implications, and a relentless pursuit for justice in the face of a global tragedy. As the intricate web of evidence slowly unraveled, revealing the harrowing truth behind the bombing of Flight 103, the world watched as legal and political ramifications began to unfold. The conviction of Abdelbased al-Megrahi marked a pivotal moment, but it was only the beginning of a long journey through international courts and diplomatic corridors. This journey would not only challenge the boundaries of international law, but also reshape the relationships between nations in the fight against global terrorism. The ripples of Pan Am Flight 103 extended far beyond the immediate aftermath. The bombing reshaped the landscape of international relations, particularly between the West and Libya. Sanctions and diplomatic pressures mounted until Libya acknowledged responsibility and agreed to compensate the victims' families, a gesture entwined with political implications. In the realm of aviation, the tragedy became a catalyst for sweeping security enhancements. Baggage screening, security protocols, and international cooperation in aviation safety saw unprecedented focus. The skies were no longer seen as safe havens. They became zones of extra vigilance and precaution. The fallout of Flight 103 extended into courtrooms and political arenas. The trial of Abdelbasset al-Megrahi, held in a neutral venue in the Netherlands under Scottish law, was a landmark in international justice. His conviction in 2001 marked the culmination of years of investigation and diplomatic negotiations. However, the trial was shrouded in controversy, with debates over the evidence and allegations of miscarriages of justice, leading to ongoing appeals and calls for re-examination of the case. Politically, the incident strained Libya's relations with Western nations. Years of sanctions and diplomatic isolation followed until Libya's eventual acceptance of responsibility and agreement to compensate the victims' families. This admission was part of a broader strategy by Libya to rehabilitate its international image, leading to the lifting of UN sanctions and a gradual reintegration into the global community. The legal and political responses to the Pan Am Flight 103 bombing reflected the complexities of dealing with international terrorism and the challenges in achieving justice in the wake of such a global tragedy. Reflecting on these legal and political developments, we see not just the pursuit of justice, but also the intricate dance of international relations influenced by a tragedy that reverberated across borders. As we conclude this exploration of Pan Am Flight 103, we're reminded of the fragility of life and the ripple effects of a single act of terror. This event, more than just a historical footnote, is a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of our world, how geopolitical tensions can manifest in unimaginable tragedy. It urges us to remember those lost, to recognize the resilience of those who endured, and to reflect on the lessons learned in pursuit of a safer future. In remembering Pan Am Flight 103, we honor not just the past but also inform our steps into a future where such tragedies are averted by vigilance, understanding, and shared humanity.